Right, Dr. Chong, that's a fair point, and we understand that given the current geopolitical climate, it seems that all the fault lines are somehow passing through either Beijing or Washington. And having said that, now coming back to what you said about the Strait of Hormuz, we understand that Beijing, has had a lot of strategic benefit that it has been reaping from its alliance with Iran. But we also know that China desperately needs the Hormuz Strait to open up to stabilize the energy markets. So at what point might, China's economic interests trump its strategic alignment with Iran?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the PRC historically has gotten quite a lot from Iran. What's been fairly interesting is as the conflict started, the PRC side has actually not been as supportive of Iran as you might otherwise imagine when they talk about all the strategic comprehensive partnerships and all that. So I think there are a couple of things to note here. I mean, the relationship with Iran was a way to secure oil and gas. That remains important. However, when it comes to the current crisis, the current conflict, I mean, the U.S. side has demanded a regime change, a destruction of Iran's navy. That's not something that I think the PRC can deliver. That's something that Tehran has to decide on. And I don't think they have a big interest in those kinds of things. When the PRC says no nuclear weapons for Iran, sure, I think for the PRC, if that mollifies the US, they'd be happy to say that. But for Iran, when it comes to their own regime and their own sort of thinking about their own regime security, I don't think any amount of sort of encouragement from Beijing is going to, fundamentally change their core concerns.
And then in what ways do you think, well, China or Trump what kind of ways would Trump want China to help in getting the Strait of Hormuz opened?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's not been really any specifics on it. So I suppose they want the U.S. side is hoping that the PRC side can encourage the Iranian side to back down. But I don't see how the Iranian side will easily back down if there's no guarantee for their security. They clearly don't want to be bombed again. They don't want to be attacked again. And they will use whatever leverage they can, including the Strait of Hormuz, to that effect. So I suppose it comes down to what Beijing thinks that they can offer to Tehran, but Iran is pretty far from the PRC. They don't share a contiguous border, so it's going to be pretty challenging in terms of what Beijing can deliver. I mean, they could offer some sort of political guarantee. They could offer some sort of economic or rebuilding assistance, but that all rests on having the security environment stabilize.
Right, and just by the virtue of us having that give and take conversation, do you think that, President Trump, it's no doubt he has returned to a very different Beijing than 2017, and analysts have been arguing that Washington is strategically and also economically in a much more tighter spot, which has somehow shifted the, balance of leverage and power in China's favor and also by extension to Iran. Would you agree with that?
So what I would say is that the shock which Beijing had responded to the Trump tariffs during his first term, that's not there. They believe that they have a way of handling a lot of this. So we saw the rare earth threats that they put on the U.S., getting the Trump administration to back down a little bit. And I suppose the PRC shows that it has a lot of technical prowess. But the fact that both sides are talking in relatively conciliatory terms suggests to me that that both Beijing and Washington don't find any way that they can get some sort of strategic advantage, right? So they may have sort of tactical advantages on some point or the other, but to really push the other side to change their fundamental positions, I think neither side is confident that they can do it. And if they themselves make any compromise, they might decide to renege later if they think they can better their position. How this relates to Iran, I think the logic is that, if you get some sort of movement on talks with Iran through Beijing, that might be possible. But, there's the question of whether Beijing will abide by it if they think circumstances change. And on the Trump side, on the US side, they think that if they can, improve their situation regardless of what Beijing does, they could renege as well. So that sort of, stalemate between the two, it's not so much a US advantage anymore, but they've, basically, I think, have a lock on each other's position, and there's going to be more difficulty in terms of movement.
I understand, Dr. Chong. Of course, both the countries do need something out of the other. And of course, we'll be looking at if we get a deal. It would be a big win for Trump if he does that. But of course, we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this tea talk. We can wait and see for that. But thank you so much, Dr. Chong, for joining us and giving your perspective on this very big global event, we can call it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Bye-bye.